The shooting range. In this episode, pages of history, the era of composite armor, tactics and strategy, drones big and small, and metal beasts, the updated Swede. To call today's metal beast a new vehicle would not be entirely correct. The light Swedish tank called the CV90-105 has been available for a while now. But the Drone Age update has introduced some significant changes and given it a new battle rating. Let's take a look at its refreshed capabilities. Its main weapon is a two-plane stabilized 105mm gun with elevation angles between -10 and +42 degrees. Auxiliary calibers include a coaxial machine gun and 14 smoke launchers. Its engine compartment is placed in the front, next to the driver's seat, while the commander and the gunner sit in the turret. The ammo racks are placed in the tank's rear. The first thing you might notice here is the new large turret. Its armor is still modest, but the turret rear now houses an autoloader with a capacity of 10 rounds. It reduces the reload time to a mere 5 seconds, a major feature for a light tank. Still, you have to keep in mind that this luxurious speed is only available for the first level stowage. Naturally, you'll want to hide somewhere far away from the enemy to reload, and this Swedish vehicle handles the task with ease. Its new 670 horsepower engine is more than enough to compensate for the increased mass of 25 tons. The tank can swiftly accelerate even on soft surfaces, and on asphalt it can speed up to 70 kilometers per hour. The reverse is also good. 40 kilometers per hour is ample for any situation. Another important change is a new round available to this tank. The DM33 APF SDS is great at handling armored targets, ensuring a confident battle with multiple enemies at the same time. This machine is also well equipped with auxiliary devices. Smokes will help you hide from your enemy when needed. Thermal sights available to both the gunner and the commander will guide you towards your targets, be it day or night, and a fire control system will calculate the best lead in a second. And there's more. This tank is now equipped with a recon drone, but we'll get to that part in a few minutes. Amazing specs and modern devices require a sacrifice, and for this tank, it's survivability. Its large internal space somewhat makes up for poor defenses, but with a small crew and aluminum turret armor, you'd be better off playing with caution. And finally, remember about active scouting. It's free real estate. The history of tank design is mostly the history of a race between armor and rounds. It had been pretty linear for the first few decades. Gun calibers grew in size, round velocities and masses were increasing. In response, tanks stepped their mass up, and their armor was getting thicker and thicker. To improve the defenses and keep the mass within reasonable limits, designers tried to reduce internal volume, creating cast hulls with sophisticated shapes. But pretty soon, by the 1950s, that path had reached a dead end. No reducible space was left. Meanwhile, artillery was still improving its accuracy. The newest subcaliber and high-explosive rounds could penetrate any armor. There's a reason the Leopard 1 and the AMX-30 felt like they were made of paper. The designers dismissed their attempts to protect them against incoming rounds, betting on mobility instead. So what, was it a complete defeat for the armor? Yes. The rounds won over regular armor, hands down. But surely there's something more to crew protection than steel. The first subcaliber and high-explosive rounds were used by the Germans, and it was the Germans again who made the first step towards a new type of armor. In their attempts to improve the defenses of the Panzer III, the engineers installed a 20mm thick front screen. Despite the fact that Soviet 76mm rounds could penetrate up to 70mm of armor, they failed against two sheets, 50 and 20mm thick respectively. Later, such screens were installed on the sides as well. They were originally meant as protection against anti-tank rifles, but it was soon discovered that those screens were good against high explosive rounds as well. The screen would trigger the fuse, and the shaped charge would lose its energy in the time it took to reach the main armor, failing to penetrate it. Only the strongest charges and grenades remained an issue, since they required a huge gap between layers that would interfere with normal tank usage. The Soviet engineers made the next step in armor development. Now, what is spaced armor? Basically, it's a layered cake made of steel, air, and steel again. You might think that the gap between steel sheets could be filled with something much more useful than air, and you'd be right. The T-64 was the first tank to use composite armor made of steel and glass fiber plastic. The latter has a much lower density, so shaped charge jets go through the layers in a different manner. The turret armor can also be made of alternating layers, like for instance on the Abrams and Leopard 2 tanks. However, the Soviet engineers chose a different path. The early T-64 tanks used aluminum for the filler. It was poured into a steel mold. This solution soon proved inferior, so the mass production version had ceramic balls instead in its turret armor. Composite armor became a true breakthrough in tank design and launched a new stage of the attack versus defense race. It also pushed engineers into going for larger calibers and rounds with extreme aspect ratios. And that's the reason why even modern tanks need more than just passive armor to defend against contemporary rounds. It's time for active protection systems, advanced camouflage, and threat detection equipment. But that's a story for another time. It's time to talk about the new vehicle class heralded by the Drone Age update. Why don't we check out what kinds of drones are available and how you can use them in combat? Let's take them for a ride. We'd like to start with smaller reconnaissance drones, now available to all light tanks of ranks 6 and 7 as a researchable upgrade. They're extremely simple to use. The default key combination is Alt-U. It's just as easy to get back to the ground. Press U to continue fighting on your tank. The drone would automatically level itself and fly straight. You can switch between the drone and the tank as often as you want. The drone is capable of flying for much longer than any battle usually lasts, even the longest ones. Now, why might you need these tiny aircraft in the first place? While they don't have any fatal weaponry, the value drones bring along is unquestionable. The main feature is combat reconnaissance. We're sure you don't need to be told what advantage it is to know for certain what expects you beyond that hill. Now, imagine this. A squad mate flies a recon drone and shares everything about the enemy movements with their squad at the beginning of the battle, or even puts a mark on the extra dangerous targets. Isn't that exciting? We're sure it is. You can share intel with other teammates as well, but you'll need to use the chat for it. Still, try to avoid attracting unwanted attention by circling above enemy tanks. UAVs are aircraft, and much like any other aircraft, they can be knocked down, which means you'll have to go back to a base to reload your drone. Now let's see what the bigger strike drones are like. While smaller ones resemble toy models, these are rigorous combat units. At the moment, strike drones include 3 models in the game: the Soviet Orion, the Chinese Winglong 1, and the MQ-1 for other nations. These machines are armed with air-to-surface missiles, equipped with targeting systems, good zoom, and thermal vision devices. You can only employ strike drones in realistic battles starting at a BR of 9.7. To take off, you'll need to earn enough spawn points first. You don't need to install anything into the crew slot. The drone will appear in your vehicle set automatically, like the familiar nuke-carrying aircraft. Once you get enough points, you can take off. Strike drones spawn at an altitude exceeding 4 kilometers, almost above the ground forces map, allowing you to jump into action in a very short time. The main priority for UAVs is anti-aircraft defenses. Reason number 1, they're easy to hit, which is crucial with so few missiles available. Reason number 2, your team's pilots would be happy. Thanks to high-definition thermals and excellent optics, spotting targets won't become an issue. Once you're out of ammo, you've got 3 options. Option 1, reconnaissance and targeting for your team. With the onboard targeting system, you can perform these duties outside of anti-air range. Option 2, return to the airfield for a reload. Keep in mind that UAVs can rarely accelerate past 400 kilometers per hour, even in a dive. You can get back to the base pretty quickly, but getting up to a high altitude again would take way more time than you'd want. That's why there's option 3. Get out of the drone and switch to another vehicle, like a plane or a helicopter. After all, didn't we just suppress enemy air defenses? Well, here's the kind of vehicles the first War Thunder drones are. Share your thoughts and experiences with the new class in the comments while we answer some of your questions. The first question was sent by a player called Josh McCallum. Do all Vautours have heat seekers or just the Israeli versions? Hi Josh, infrared homing missiles were only used on the Israeli Vautours. Bob writes, what are the fastest World War II single-engine prop planes in the game? Hey Bob, right now the fastest piston-engine fighter near the ground is the American P-51H. It can accelerate to almost 680 kilometers per hour. Another question comes from Captain Garlic. What are the best IR air-to-air missiles currently available in the game? Hi, Captain Garlic. At the moment, the best IR-guided missiles are the all-aspect AIM-9L, the R-60M, the R-60MK, the R-24T, the TY-90, and the R-550 Magic II. Flying Scotsman asks, how to play the top piston-engined planes against jets? Ahoy, mate! How would you feel about an entire section dedicated to playing piston-engined fighters? We could tell you everything about fighting against early jets. And the last comment for today was written by Burgernator. Will it be possible to jettison rocket pods when they're spent so we can have better flight performance? Hi, Burgernator. You've recently received an option to drop all suspended armament. To do this, you'll need to assign a key for the emergency drop, choose the weapon type via the selector menu, and press that key. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to try a barrel roll on your drone, leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.